So DACA, because it's a congressional, or because it's an executive order, meaning this never goes through Congress, it never shows up in the laws, the immigration laws, it has to be a very temporary type of benefit. So all you really get is the ability to accept work on an authorized basis for 2 years, and then you can apply to renew when your work permit is about to expire. Now, that feels pretty temporary and pretty limited by way of a benefit, and it is. At the same time, it's a hugely significant one for the people that were able to, that qualified for it. It is a path to get a social security number and actually develop credit in your own name. It's a path to getting a driver's license because you can prove that the immigration agency has actually said, yes, we know who you are, we know that you're here, it's okay. And that's often all that's required by the drivers motor vehicle offices to issue a driver's license. In some states, I think about 18 states, it's allowed people to get in-state tuition so that they can actually afford to go on to college. This no unlawful presence thing is a technical thing in immigration law, but it can be pretty significant. So folks who are here without authorization start to get what is referred to in immigration law as bad time. So they accrue unlawful presence, and that starts to trigger lots of bars and reasons that you might not be eligible for different kinds of benefits in the future. So with DACA, you avoid that. We say like, okay, we know that you're here, you're allowed to be here, we'll let you work while you're here, but we will not give you immigration status. We're just promising not to deport you. That's all you get, right? A temporary 2-year promise, no deportation. And of course, if during that 2 years you do get that DUI, you did get deported, and that continues to be true. So any sort of change in your eligibility because of criminal convictions would then move you into a category of being a target for deportation. Generally, though, you still couldn't get federal student loans. So whether you were in a state that provided in-state tuition or not was pretty significant, because you couldn't apply for federal student loans, or you still can't. So the DREAM Act, because Congress is the body that is allowed to actually give status and create citizenship rules, the DREAM Act through Congress has, I think in all but one version of it, has led to a path to citizenship. So one of the most recent bills that was being debated in Congress kind of kept it in this temporary status, but every other one said, okay, it was a very long path to citizenship, but it did give you a path to citizenship and took you into the realm of actually having a green card instead of this temporary work authorization that required renewal and sort of, when you renew, you have to again kind of prove, here's where I live, I don't have status, here's my criminal history, and if you got that wrong, you could end up putting yourself in the crosshairs for deportation. So those are sort of the differences in the benefits. Questions at this point on sort of what these programs are and who can get them? So it's a little hard to pin down. And it depends a bit who you talk to, in my experience. So the Idaho in-state tuition rules talk about needing to prove lawful presence. And so I think that the way that different schools here have interpreted it maybe potentially varies. And I think students at University of Idaho who do have DACA are generally given in-state tuition. But we do not have a law that says that is true. And so depending on sort of how that gets interpreted by different schools and different policies, that could vary. Washington, however, has had a very clear in-state tuition policy, and they do provide they don't have federal student loans, but they do qualify for state loans and state financial aid. So they have a much higher, like WSU has a much higher DACA population than UI for those reasons. Yeah?
The DREAM Act, is that totally separate from any immigration immigration laws that they may have, or is it tied into?
Yeah, so we'll talk about that towards the end there. It has, in theory, and in the prior iterations, like in 2001, 2007, and 2010, at least some of those, I'm not sure about all of them, but like 2010 when it almost passed, they were introduced standalone, right? And they may have been tied to like a reauthorization of military funding or something like that, but they were not tied to some overhaul of like all our immigration laws, right? They are now being tied to that. And so we haven't seen a proposal since like 2012 where it's just a standalone DREAM Act that could be voted on. It's always been tied to other immigration provisions. Is that another hand? Yeah.
Yeah, I was, when you were talking about military service, I was a little bit surprised that people can get into the military without being, I guess, citizens. And so, is that something that's recent, or is it just kind of been around for a while and I'm just not aware?
So this is going to push the outer bounds of what I know. So
Okay.
take this at like a certain percentage certainty. I don't know, maybe like 80. So you can enroll if you're a lawful permanent resident. And for a while there was a program that made your path to citizenship then much faster if you were enrolled in the military. And I think Trump has done away with that, although I think it is also subject to litigation in which he is not winning. It's always been an issue with DACA that individuals are not allowed then to enlist in the military. The one exception was like if you had sort of special skills, and those could be like language abilities.
Right.
You could get into the military on that basis, and those were, I think, the exceptions that allowed for people without, I'm not sure if that allowed for the green card holders or if it just allowed for everybody short of having a green card to get in to show those special skills. However, most DACA recipients, and we'll talk about that, I think, next, are from Mexico. And even, like, if you combine Mexico and Central America, it's an even higher percentage. And so, because almost all DACA recipients are Spanish-speaking, those kind of special qualifications that in military service are generally not available. It's not an avenue for people. I have a client who is an applicant for a U visa, which is sort of a special protection for victims of crime in the United States so that they can help participate in the prosecution of the perpetrators of those crimes. And the wait list is forever, so she's just been waiting and waiting. And she actually qualifies for DACA as well, so she's been getting DACA while she waits for her U visa. But she wants to be in the Marines more than anything, and she's concerned that she's going to age out of eligibility in the Marines. And so the Marines recruiter is calling me like, can't we get this person in? And I was like, you would have better luck than I would, right? Like, the rules say like DACA doesn't let her go in. And so she's just kind of hoping that something works out to transition her to more permanent status before she ages out of Marines eligibility. So the demographics, so as I said, there's about 800,000 people who've received DACA, and then about 100,000 people have dropped off the rolls, and that's for a few different reasons. Some, I think the largest portion just didn't renew, and I think that has a lot to do with fear about getting deported and having their families start to be targeted for deportation. And that has become an increasing issue under President Trump. He is vowing to criminally prosecute parents who have brought their children in under alien smuggling. And so there is a lot more vulnerability now for the parents of these individuals if they can figure out where they live and prove a case. And we're talking federal criminal prosecution, not just deportation. So that goes with jail time.